When talking about the judgment of the sheep and the goats, Jesus said, "Inasmuch as you did this to the least of these my brothers, you did it also to me." Let's talk about judgment for a moment. This is the thing which virtually all modern Christian argument and theology centers around. The central idea being that judgment is based on what particular doctrine or theology about God, Jesus, and, in some churches, a host of other bullet points one might hold. The greatest driver of fear is that we will be condemned if we don't believe the right thing. But this isn't what Jesus said. Jesus said people would be separated based on how they treated other people when he talked about judging the sheep and the goats, and in particular how they treated the most vulnerable. It wasn't a matter of how well one could keep the rules, but whether one is compassionate, kind, and loving towards others. In other words, this judgment is boiled down to two concepts or commandments. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and love your neighbor as yourself. But someone might say, the commandment to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your strength, and all of your mind is the most important. Jesus said that too. Yes, he did. Absolutely. But as John wrote, how can you love God whom you haven't laid eyes on, and hate your brother whom you have laid eyes on? You can't. When we love God, we love those around us, our neighbors, our brothers, and our enemies. When we love those around us, we love God. When we treat others as we want to be treated, we are treating God the same way. As Jesus said, "Inasmuch as you did this to the least of these my brothers, you did it also to me." Therefore, you cannot love God without keeping this primary and core concept upon which this judgment which Jesus talked about is based. That is, loving your neighbor as yourself, and treating others as you want to be treated. There is no workaround, no religious exemption, and no real excuse. As Jesus also said, quoting the prophet, "I want mercy and not sacrifice." He wants compassion and empathy for other people, not religious belief or observance. What's really interesting is that this is exactly what is reported in near-death experiences. When a life review is reported, there are always the same features. They see the scenes of their lives replayed with perfect clarity and accuracy, but they don't just see it. They experience it from the viewpoint of the people on the receiving end of their words and actions. If the person was cruel, they feel that cruelty themselves. If they were kind, they feel that kindness themselves. And what is really interesting is that they become their own judges based on how they experience it, and frequently, while Jesus himself stands next to them. Nothing is forgotten, even if everything is ultimately forgiven. What is also really interesting is that hellish NDEs don't start there. They start in torment without the life review. Unless I'm mistaken, the people most likely to experience a hellish NDE are the self-righteous, religious or not, and regardless of what they profess to believe about Jesus. Selfish people, self-righteous, people who look out for themselves first. These are the people most likely to experience them. I remember reading one account about a devout Christian church lady who had a hellish experience. Her response to it was, "What was I doing all this for if this is what's going to happen to me?" God is not mocked. He can't be fooled by appearances or by professions of faith. And whatever you plant, you harvest. Period. You believe in Jesus? Awesome. So do the fallen angels. If you really believe in Jesus, you'll do what he taught and walk as he walked.